welcome to CruzCoda Plays Kerbal Space Program, brought to you by CruzCoda, yours truly. What we're going to be doing with this little series is essentially this is sort of a test run for me. First time I've ever done any sort of YouTube video. Going to see what it's like, but I'm also really enjoying playing games and watching the Let's Play videos, so I thought I would do one of my own. What we're going to be looking at today is this wonderful program, Kerbal Space Program. I know it's horrible calling it a program, but I don't really consider it much of a game, so much as it's an explosion simulator. You just have really awesome fuel tanks to do that with, and lots of little green men to throw around in space. So what we're going to do is go ahead and start. Now, unlike a lot of other YouTubers out there and a lot of other people who are playing this game and making videos, I am still learning a lot of the fundamentals. So far have not landed on the moon, have not been able to get to Minmus, trying to get down the sequence of events so that I can actually get around the moon. But that's what this is also going to help with. Essentially what I'm going to do is start a new game, but I'm going to take the easy way out. Easy being the imperative word there. So what we're going to look at is, first of all, we're going to go ahead and start a new game. We're going to call it CruzCoda's Easy Game, because I want to make this easy for me to identify. We're going to go ahead and set the game difficulty to easy. Now sometimes if I am just messing about and I want to play around with some stuff, but I also feel like doing a little bit of achievement unlocking, I may start out with a little bit more science, may start out with some reputation, may even go ahead and adjust funds and reputation rewards as well as the science rewards here. Usually though 200% is best for easy. It's not too much, but it's not too little. I'm also tempted to go ahead and not allow stock vessels, mostly because they tend to clutter things up. So for that, that's going to set us at custom, but we know we started with easy. So we'll go ahead and hit accept. And then we're also going to go ahead and change our flag. As much as I love the KSP default flag, I feel like going for something a little bit different this run. Yeah. Who doesn't love a good strut? There we go. So we're going to start with career mode. Now career mode allows us to go ahead and unlock different things, either by collecting science so that we can do research and development, by completing contracts for more science and funds, that's monies, simoleons, whatever you want to call it. And then it also increases reputation. Now, I'm not entirely certain what reputation does. I should probably go look that up, but from what I have heard in other videos, it apparently does go towards giving you a boost to your science and fund returns. So whatever you wind up making on missions and things like that, I will definitely have to look that up though. But everything else looks good. Career mode is where we want to go, so we'll go ahead and start. Now you may notice that my version of Kerbal loads up a little bit slower than others, partly due to my hardware. It is an old computer, but on top of that I'm also running a lot of modifications. Now I like the mods that I have installed simply because they give me a lot of additional parts to build with, but then on top of that I get the opportunity to get some really valuable tools out of it as well, which we'll get to see here in a little bit. So this is not going to be just a default fresh install, we're good to go, but this is actually more so a modded version. I have played enough to be able to at least get into orbit, so it's not going to be one off and we're done. But we're going to go ahead and start out. We've got Gene Kerman here. Everybody who has played Kerbal Space Program has met him before multiple times. Very genial fellow, but I'm still having troubles with the way he eyeballs me from time to time. Fortunately, we don't see him too often, but we'll go ahead and make him disappear. Now, along with this particular playthrough, I'm also not going to be going into too much of a tutorial feeling. I may try and give some tips and tricks periodically, just try and help out. Things that I have learned over the course of my playthroughs. The biggest thing, first of all, is that you're going to want to upgrade your astronaut complex pretty quickly. This will definitely help once you start getting into orbit, because this will allow your Kerbals, your little astronauts, to do outer space EVAs. Currently at level 1, they can only get out of the capsule on Kerbin itself. So you definitely want to be able to upgrade that. That will allow you to do EVAs. And then on top of that, you'll be able to go ahead and place flags during EVAs. That'll definitely help. And it'll support up to 12 active Kerbals. So usually I only use about 3 or 4. I am horrible about reverting the launches, just because oftentimes I don't want to have to go through the ordeal of rescuing the poor little guys from space. Still working on orbital rendezvous, but again, hopefully that'll be part of this series, and we'll be able to actually go over that and show it off. But we're going to go ahead and start in the vehicle assembly building. This is a lovely place. This is where all the rocket science happens. And Werner von Kerman, or Werner von Kerman, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It's probably horribly mispronounced both ways, but he's going to tell us a little bit about the VAB. I already know most of that. I'm going to go ahead off from the start and just get ourselves a command pod, and we need to build up science pretty quick. So we're going to go ahead and throw some mystery goo pods on here, and I'll just double those up real quick with one tap of the X button. Keyboard shortcuts I have found. I play everything like a first-person shooter. Fingers are on WAS and D, and whenever a game uses primarily that section of the keyboard, being a right-handed person, I feel sorry for lefties, but being a right-handed person works out beautifully. So we've got our goo, we've got our capsule. We're going to go ahead and switch from Jeb, even though Jeb is the hero of all of Kerbin. We're going to switch out for Bob, because I believe having a scientist on board helps with getting additional science from experiments. We're also going to give this a quick name. This is just going to be Probe Mark 1. Also down here, you can put in a little description. Something like that. You can also say only complex science. So definitely a lot of customization that goes on here. Usually though, I'm just building ideas, playing around with concepts, so I don't spend too much time on naming these, but for the sake of this, we're going to go ahead and do that. And now we'll just save it. I am religious about saving. As the joke goes, Jesus saves, the devil doesn't. So save often. And we'll go ahead and launch, and again, long load times. Apologies for that. Maybe someday I will be able to afford the giant rig that will load this in seconds. Now the reason why I am starting off with just the command capsule is simply because for right now I just need to observe mystery goo, and we're going to collect the science real quick. And this was something on my earlier playthroughs I really didn't catch on too much with, was using science, and more specifically collecting it here, and then, oh, look at that, we're going to do an EVA. Now I saw a tutorial about somebody doing this where they collected it before leaving the pod, and the reason why is because it says we're flying over Kerbin. The way that KSP does all of its atmospheres and biomes and whatnot is very influential and key to gathering as much research as possible. So we're going to go ahead and keep that and then dump it into our pod, into our capsule. And now we'll go ahead and climb out of the ship. And here we are, extra vehicular activity. We are outside of our vehicle. Here goes Bob, good old Bob Kerman. And we're going to go ahead and collect another EVA report. only 4.8 science now. One of the things that people have done, and one of my coworkers who has actually been very beneficial in giving me information about how to get better at this game, even gave me a quick and dirty tutorial on how to effectively get into orbit. But one of the things that he suggested was at this point you could run all the way across to your space center and collect some more data. You could also run out towards the ocean and collect some more. I'm not going to do that just because it is incredibly time consuming overall. So what we're going to do is go ahead and just climb. Oh, better get to the front. We're going to go ahead and just climb back in here. Board. And for those of you who are new to KSP, I'm going to teach you something that's pretty nice. I found this out well after I started playing, but if you just move your mouse cursor to the top here, get the option to recover vessel when it is at a complete stop on Kerbal. Now, I'm not sure about other planets. I haven't had a chance to really expand outwards, but I know as far as this goes, recovering directly on Kerbal, which is typically where you want to recover, is where it will be. So, recover that. Now, when you recover your vessel, of course, it's hopefully going to give you all of the fruits of your labor. The wandering aimlessly for hours on end through an infinite green desert. That sort of thing. But, get ourselves some science here. We're going to go ahead next through this. Funds have not changed. We really didn't do anything. These typically only go up for completing contracts, and we'll get into that, or I will get into that eventually. Word of warning though, I don't spend too much time doing contracts simply because I like the building, I like the experimentation, I like the explosions. Contracts, while they can fulfill some of those, tend to slow me down. I have to be specific about it. Way too much thought. But now that we've done all that, we're going to pop back over here, and we've got some new parts that we can go ahead and unlock through the Research and Development Center. One of those is going to be the basic rocketry. Usually I find, as this unlocks some fuel parts and engine parts, I find that liquid fuel rockets tend to work better overall, specifically just for fuel conservation versus mass. But this is definitely what we're going to want, so we can start getting off of Kerbal. So we'll research this, and then we're going to go ahead and research Engineering 101. And again, some of these items are from my mods that I have installed. KIS, that's the Kerbal inventory system. Wrench, which is part of KIS. But there's also some other stuff here. Science Junior, again, more science, and we're actually going to get to use that immediately. And then the stack decoupler. This thing is amazing. It is one of the few items that you will use repeatedly and will be both the source of great enjoyment and great frustration as you deal with staging later on. So we'll go ahead and research, and we're going to head back to the VAB, and we're going to make a quick modification to our capsule, essentially making it Mark II. But we have our two goos. Let's go ahead and want to go to science so that we can get to our Science Junior. Come here, thank you. And that's it. We will update this to Mark II. Again, we can leave this the same. Really isn't going to matter. Everybody's happy, and launch again. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that in a lot of situations, you will be running these experiments in space where doing an EVA is incredibly feasible, even at incredible speeds. And so you'll want to get in the habit of doing EVAs. You can do that just by moving down to the portrait of your Kerbal and then clicking on EVA. I believe there are shortcuts that you can also bind to that to make it happen much quicker, but I haven't really bothered too much. But again, I always double check. Sometimes things change. Nope, but we'll take the extra science. We just need to run Observe Materials Bay from Science Junior. There we go. Extra science. Lots of science. Once we add a rocket, that is going to be our best friend for a short while. But again, recover vessel. And we'll be able to reap what we sow, which is hopefully a lot more science. And we're up to 31. Now, the early stages of the game, it will be incredibly easy to collect science, especially if you are maintaining all of your experiments. However, later on it does get a little bit more difficult. It takes a lot longer, and especially if you're really looking at this board here. And of course it looks like a rocket. But when you're looking at it, some of these parts, some of the research, 1,000 research for some of this stuff, and that's cumulative over time. As you build up, these get more expensive, and so you need ever more science. And that's where going to the other planets and doing the contracts is really supposed to help, and apparently also getting your reputation up. But right now I've got 31 science. I have a couple of different options. I can either go with general rocketry, which will get me some additional fuel tanks, better engine for navigation purposes. The swivel engine, a gimbaled engine, allowing it to move, will be your best friend. Stability is also a good way to go. This will help with doing radial decouplers. And if you have ever heard of asparagus staging, that's where you layer rockets around each other and then use fuel tubing, fuel piping, I believe it's called. I'll have to double check that, but as long as you use that, that will allow you to drain fuel from rockets, from fuel tanks, starting from the outside, working your way inside, and dropping them off in stages. And the radial decoupler will be a huge part of that. And then the last one is survivability. This one just gives us some more parachutes, which are useful, especially as your ship gets larger. Service bay, which is good for storing the experiments inside of, will help with being more aerodynamic. And then a few other things, again, parts of mods. Apparently I want to start building biplanes. But some of these items are supposed to help us get out to the moon, land on it, and get back. But I think for now, I'm going to go ahead and pick up the general rocketry. And again, we're going to go back to our VAB, and now we're going to do a little bit of design tweaking. So we've got our pod, command pod, we've got our science goo, mystery goo stuff, our science junior. What we're going to do is now we need to build a rocket. Now there are a lot of different ways you can do this. You can start off with solid fuel to get it up off the ground, give it that real big kick, or you can do liquid fuel. I'm going to go ahead and start off with liquid fuel tanks, and we'll just do a couple here. And then I'm going to throw a swivel engine on this. Now this is going to be just one stage eventually. We'll see about making it more over time. So that way I actually have something that's a little bit more respectable as far as rocket ships go. Now you'll also notice down here in the corner my options are changing. There's keyboard shortcuts for that, but you can also click on these with the right and left buttons of your mouse to change their angles and snaps. And typically you won't need 4 mystery goos, however it's not a bad idea, and especially if you splash down in the ocean. That is another biome that you can collect science from. A lot of different places where you're going to be collecting science from, and especially as you start unlocking atmospheric vehicles. But that looks good. Let's see what other parts I have to work with. Now I can go ahead and make a multi-stage rocket. Just get that done, but I'm not going to yet. Ah, parachute. Got to have the parachute. And we're good. Well, let's see how this goes. And we're loaded up. Looking at our beautiful rocket just balancing precariously upon its gimbaled, beautiful word, gimbaled engine. What we're going to do is use the Z key, max out our thrust. Oh, this is the other thing I was talking about, staging. Staging is everything. These two. Do not want our parachute launching when our rocket does. But if everything's good, we'll just tap space to get us started off. And away we go. Now we can go ahead and pop one of our mystery goos now. Yes, we can go ahead and... Oh, now this is where things can go potentially wrong. If you don't have any stabilization, this will happen to your rocket. Where did I put... Oh, I did not put a decoupler on here. Well, that's okay. Crew report. Observe materials bay. Good. Get some more mystery goo. And... just try and burn as much of this as possible. Now ordinarily, to keep this from happening, you would have some fins or something like that. Also, what you can do is having a pilot instead of a scientist will allow you to use SAS, which is for stabilization. God, I really should look up these acronyms, but essentially the stabilization allows your pilot to try and keep everything on track. Where you point is where you go. Doesn't always work out that way, but oh, yep. Good news is all the science experiments survived. That's the important part, and it looks like we're far enough away. We'll pop out. Can we do another EVA here? No, we'll just reset that. And, oh, okay, now he's back up. Collect the data. Let's go ahead and restore Science Junior real quick. Store that. Observe. And observe more mystery goo. Now we can go ahead and get back in. Once we're in, we'll go ahead and recover and see how we're looking. Probably going to go ahead and wrap up this first episode here. Not sure how long this is, but I want to go ahead and see how it's looking. And it's a good stopping point. Look at all that science. That is going to help us out nicely. That'll start getting us up into orbit without much issue at all. But as you can see, doing all those EVAs, doing the multiple science experiments really helps out. Decent amount of funding from it, so our money has gone up. And Bob has come back to us. And there we go. Now we're starting to actually see some good stuff. Next episode, assuming of course I get around to it, we'll go ahead and start looking at adding additional research to all of this. See about making our rocket a little bit bigger and possibly getting into orbit. It depends on how things go. Thank you very much for watching and enjoy playing Kerbal.